This video essay is brought to you by Mubi. These shots are most often referred to as God's eye view. The camera is pointing down at a 90-degree angle to the floor. The shot got its name because if God exists, He's looking at you from above. It's a neutral, removed perspective, which makes it a great option for very specific purposes. Scorsese, for example, employs it all the time, not necessarily to give us God's purview, but to create an awareness that someone is watching over the events, in a way that makes us question the morality of what's taking place. Murder becomes all the more horrific from this unnatural and jarring vantage point. Yet most often, this shot is used because it creates a disconnect. First, because unless you're Quasimodo, you're not used to looking down at stuff at a 90-degree angle. Secondly, often this shot is used to look at objects or people from a distance. And while it might be interesting to look at the top of someone's head, it's the front part that has the most interesting bits. That's why Wes Anderson's God's Eye is so interesting. Because instead of an immoral and disconnected effect, he uses this shot to create the absolute most emotional moments in his filmography. Let's start with objects. God's eye is used to do something as simple as set up a plot point, but most often it's used to hint at something important about the characters, like the fact that Margot is in some way incomplete. Wes has used a variation of this shot since his first short in '94, but in the robbery scene the camera is never pointed straight down, but at an angle. He changed that just a couple of years later when he reshot that same scene. Soon-Ji Lee explains the change this way. The shot provides a vantage point to get the maximum information as well as the objectively clearest visual scope. In addition, as with other official traits of Wes Anderson's mise-en-scène, the elaborately organized composition of this shot encourages spectators to focus on the object itself. And that's important because the cinema of Wes Anderson is a cinema of objects. They're not merely an element of decor in his films, they are central to the development of the narrative and to the meaning of the film. According to Stefano Basciera, the cinema of Wes Anderson overcomes the separation between subjects and objects.
Out of this world.
That means that Susie's books, or the puppy snaps in Isle of Dogs, aren't just props, but they become parts of the characters themselves.
Crunchy. Salty. Supposedly it cleans your teeth. Thank you.
This shot from Darjeeling Limited tells you all you need to know about Jack's character. First, the suitcase belonged to his father. All the brothers are on a morning mission to come to terms with the father's demise.
Meanwhile, he was still alive.
The end of the journey is symbolized by them leaving the suitcases behind. And secondly, the perfume left by his ex in the suitcase. Words in this type of shots are essential. He's failing to move on after the breakup, aka la petite mort, aka the small death. Is there a better description for a breakup? There's usually some literary aspect to these objects. They're lists, novels, ransom notes, they are newspapers, posters, letters, or they simply contain an inscription. Yet no matter how few the words are, these objects tell a story. The inscription in Mac's typewriter always gets me. Bravo Max, love, Mom. 4 words that explain both the trauma that haunts him and the love that drives his actions.
You wrote a play.
Writing and staging is how he keeps his mother alive.
That's right. And my mother read it and felt I should go to Rushmore. And you read it and you gave me a scholarship, didn't you? I don't usually do this, but this play means a lot to me. And I wanted to make a dedication. So I'll just say that this play is dedicated to the memory of my mother, Eloise Fisher.
In every Wes Anderson movie, there's at least one 90-degree God's eye shot that is crucial to the narrative. It starts with Anthony's fantasy sketch of his love interest in Bottle Rocket. And that's been the case until Isle of Dogs. Chief finally lets down his guard and forgets his fear of domesticity to accept the ultimate symbol of love between a boy and his dog. Yet despite how much emotional power an object can carry, Wes gets the most out of this shot when he's framing his characters.
I hope the roof flies off and I get sucked up into space. You'll be better off without me.
Wes' protagonists hide their real feelings and problems by pretending they are fine. Yet, at the decisive moment, the protagonist suddenly faces the real situation. He accepts the truth, usually when they are flat on their back. This position reveals the hopeless and helpless state of the characters. Sun-Chi Lee calls this the moment of accepting the truth. It's shot in God's eye to create a contrast. The distancing effect of such an unnatural shot is at odds with the deep emotion that these characters finally allow themselves to feel.
I need help. So do I.
It happens for the first time in Wes' work in Bottle Rocket, when Dignam finally reveals the jealousy and frustration he feels towards Anthony. The turning point of every single Wes Anderson movie is shot from this vantage point, except for his animated movies. After a foray into alcoholism, Mr. Bloom finally accepts the pain of his broken relationships. Richie and Margot realize their love is doomed. While surrounded by objects from their childhood, they must finally leave it behind. Zizou admits his golden years are behind him.
A washed-up old man with no friends, no distribution deal, wife on the rocks, people laughing at him, feeling sorry for himself.
This baby is the catalyst for Peter to accept his responsibility as a father. Susie's parents at last understand their duty to be better for their children. And finally, Monsieur Gustave. What all these shots have in common is how they frame the characters lying down, defenseless and naked in front of the eye of the camera. Yet unlike other directors who use this shot to convey God's judgment, Wes reframes this technique to create humane understanding. In the first shot, Monsieur Gustave is alone, morosely contemplating his lot in life.
I never asked who his family had been.
In the second shot, very similar to the first, he's accompanied by Zero, the only family he'll ever have.
Don't flirt with her.
This shot makes him vulnerable, and in this moment, he's happy.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci infiniment.
Cannes is over. Long live Cannes on Mubi. The streaming website is now featuring several films that played at the film festival in the director's fortnight, like Le Quatre Volte, Alexandria Again and Forever, and my favorite, Play, Ruben Östlund's third feature, who you might know as the director of Force Majeure and The Square. As you can read on Mubi, Play lays the groundwork for what was to become his signature touch. Eloquent visual storytelling and sagacious observation of social power dynamics. You can watch Play and a selection of classics and new gems if you sign up for a 30-day trial on Mubi.com/beyondtheframe. That's Mubi.com/beyondtheframe for your extended free trial.